Hello.
Hey, Chris.
Hey,
How's it
Chris.
going?
Hello.
Good, yourself?
Doing well.
Hey, Dave. Funny, we've all got these things sitting in front of our faces now, don't we?
I got to be real close to mine. I have a bad habit of talking out of the microphone.
You know, you don't have to have it in front of you and have the plosive shield. You can also have it to the side and get just as good audio.
You try that then.
And your shield is actually, do you not use your shield because it's like behind the mic anyway?
Yeah, well, I feel like when I put it behind there, it's like just blocking like this whole portion of my face. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But
And if it's farther away, it doesn't make that big of. I have it up here when it's not in use, and people are like, "No, you still hear you're fine, right?" And then I bring it close, and you get the nice proximity effect and everything. But
Yeah, but how much did you spend on yours, David? Come on.
this I went a little microphone crazy, but I don't. This one was on sale for $100,
Right.
so
It's not too bad.
200. It was like B&H had some crazy sales, and it was like 200 on sale for 100. But you can get a really nice mic. Like a bunch of Tascams were discontinued, and like $35 for a good large diaphragm mic. If you want one, I'll send it to you.
I've got one.
Voice,
Yeah.
his voice is so nice. It's not a microphone.
Yeah. Well, microphone supposed to be kind of like matched to your voice, but I've never gone quite that far. Colin, are you running things today? Or is Colin not here, just a note taker from
Yeah,
coming?
I brought that thing by accident.
Tagged
I
along
didn't
with
realize it'd
you.
follow me in here, but you can kick it out if you want.
I can't.
You can't?
No, I'm not one of the hosts.
Feel like we're playing a game. The first one to speak loses. I guess I lost.
What we have spoken already.
We've been speaking, you just
No, the pause. After the pause. It's
Oh,
when
I see, I
like
see, I see.
decided to stop talking.
Man, that used to be really effective to get the kids to be quiet in the car.
Just
Like
don't.
they'd start chattering incessantly and not quite arguing, just being like, "Okay, I'm gonna play the quiet game." For like the next half hour or something. Get some peace. I'm gonna ping Abby and Colin and Robert and see who's.
Maybe they handed it all over to you, David. Just didn't tell you.
I don't think so. It's like an official thing in the CNCF.
That's
Yeah.
true. It'd be ceremony.
Today's agenda: how to manipulate your kids.
Let's see if we get someone on. I mean, we can always just have a platform as a product update and call to action.
We can at
But we'll
least
see if-
start that everybody can put their name on the attendee list of the note.
Can't start my video. What the heck? Sorry, guys, I'm having
Oh.
some technical problems.
Problem?
So, is anybody new here and for the very first time and wants to share who they are and what they were motivated by to come around?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say I'm new to some of these meetings. I've been a fly on the wall to a couple of these cadence calls, but I've always joined severely late and didn't really quite want to intervene with the good dialogue here. But I'm Seth. I'm a sales engineer at Crumware. I'm really interested in conducting some of the research interviews for this product as a platform as a product portion. And yeah.
Perfect. Welcome. Anybody else new? No? Hand back to Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. Man, sorry guys, I got bit by the time zone issue today, so it's showing up as noon on my calendar now, but that's totally my fault and my responsibility. So I apologize for letting that screw me up, especially because I was the one who created the repeating meetings so that they would show up correctly. So that's great. So bear with me. Does anyone have the meeting notes spun up? I've been in back-to-back calls. I can post a quick little link to it in the chat. Thank you. Beautiful. All right, so let me jump in there as well. And I will share my screen on that. So I think, yeah, do we have anybody new today? Is that what you were going through, Seth?
Yeah, I was always like lurking in the background, and I just finally decided to introduce myself.
I like it. Thank you for jumping in.
We thought it was you. He brought the Crumware note taker.
Oh, we got to kick that out, don't we? Did you already kick that, Seth?
I
No.
tried to, but
I mean, these are public videos, so I don't think the note taker is really a big deal.
I feel weird about it. It like follows me around, if that makes sense.
Creeping on you.
I don't want to, and sometimes there's governance issues. So like if it's not like the CNCF's recorder, I don't know if the CNCF is like that, but our stuff is like that as well. We did that with like the FinTech Open Source Foundation and stuff. They got it jumped in there one time and it caused a big flurry of stuff. Let's see. So I guess, do you guys want to just jump into some of the ongoing work and talk about some of that? I think that might be the easiest thing. Because platform as product, I think you guys have some updates from the interview scheduling and all that. And David, I imagine you need some help. You've got the flow chart rolling as well for how to do the interviews and all that. Did you want to talk about some of that and some of the status?
Yeah, the flow chart is how to get the interview set up. And then Michael has some additional stuff on how to actually perform and then report and submit on the interviews. I think we're working, we have a draft of an interview submission form for when you're finished. But yeah, the process is set up so that anyone can work in the front end and get things moving. And it's just contact at first. So you can take something, get contact going, and then hand it off, recruit people to do the scheduling and interviewing. But right now we need to do a lot of outreach, and we got some new signups because of the post on LinkedIn, and we need more interview candidates and more people doing outreach. If you have people in your network, feel free to reach out, and then you don't even have to get them to fill out the form. You could fill it out for them, but we do want to track all of the interviews through that interview sign up form. It doesn't matter who actually fills it out. If you have your own contacts, then you don't have to put any contact info in there. Just register the fact that you're taking it. I'll try and check every day, I guess, or find a simple app script maybe to get the updates over. The reason we have 2 sheets is to protect email addresses and keep that to a limited group. So we don't have everyone with access to that, just so we don't run into any issues with that level of personal stuff. So yeah, anyone can jump in, help with contact, handing off to interviewers handle scheduling, and then we just need to get interviews underway. We are now the 3 of us that have been setting this up, trying to get out of the way. And help interviews happen however we can.
But David, are there two different sheets? There's a de-identified sheet, I guess, and then a one with all the contact information.
Yeah, so there's a form. The one that the sign up form goes to is limited access. I think you and the other two leads have access, and then the three of us, right? And then there's a form for tracking that everyone in the PAAP channel has access to, and I just manually copy over without the email column. So and it's up to date as of yesterday, and we got 6 new entries from last week.
So if somebody wants to be an interviewer,
Then
how
there's
do
a
they?
form, then there's a sign up form to become an interviewer. It's not, I mean, a bunch of people have been added to the channel without filling that out. It'd just be kind of useful since it has time zone in there. And if if I don't see people actually signing up, I could call out individuals and say, can you do this based on time zone?
I already put the link to the interview sign up into the chat here.
Yeah, I'm adding it to the doc too.
Good.
As we go. Let's see. It probably makes sense, David, anyway, to let people join the channel that aren't necessarily the interviewers, I
Yeah.
suppose. So
You
it'd be
mean
like,
when you say let people join the channel who aren't interviewers in the PAP, that is a channel for interviewers.
no, I mean, like, even if I'm not an interviewer, if you still need help, if that makes sense.
I think anyone you mean just to do outreach and contact?
Yeah, like if I don't have the time to go do the actual interviews, then I shouldn't use the sign up form to say I want to be an interviewer.
Yeah,
Right,
that's fine. If you have enough time to do the outreach, yeah, I mean, right now that's a large part of what the channel is. It's just
right.
right now getting the flow going.
See, do you want to share the flow chart and walk through that really quick?
Sure. I'll just open it up from Slack.
Is anybody on the call, is anybody interested in being an interviewer?
Yeah, I'm interested. I was just looking through some of the materials. Um, and I was trying to figure out like what the persona is that you guys are looking for, and it seems like there's also like a transcript. So are we recording the meeting?
Yeah, so this is just the sign up phase and onboarding. And Michael, you have a document for the actual interview flow, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go through that next.
Well, sure.
So we have one finished script for just to answer your question. We have a finished script for a builder, and we're going to have 2 additional scripts. One's in progress for a leader and another one for a user of a platform. And hopefully we can get as many of those from like the same environment that we can, so we can kind of compare. The sign up process, it looks like a complicated diagram, but really is just someone who takes on the first 2 phases, which are reach out to the person over Slack or potentially email, find out what time zone they're in, and then recruit the interviewers to take that interview. And the person who does the outreach could be one of the interviewers. I noticed Marsh has already started taking on some of the tracker lines and is, I'm assuming, reaching out to people, and then we'll recruit either just one more interviewer to be a secondary, or just 2 additional people. And then, you start up a private channel, get them going with, if there is private contact info, like an email, just make sure that all goes into private limited use channels, or just DMs. And then, it's up to the interviewers to actually handle scheduling the specific interview. And your other question, Corbin, we want all interviews to get video transcripts. And those will be submitted. And again, those will be kept fairly private. We're going to transcribe them and do the analysis off of that, and then probably just dispose of or discard the actual video or video links or whatever. We don't want to keep the video around for any length of time. So, yeah, any questions? Like I said, it looks complicated, but I just wanted to separate out like who does outreach potentially from who does interviewing so that we can get some flow going. And Colin, I'd be great if you, or I already have a chat out to you and Robert and Abby. You know, everyone's always asking, how can we help? Well, now helping is like getting the interviews started. So if the three of you can help with outreach and, you know, use a bit of your role to like start getting people to take action on the next steps with the scheduling and doing the interviews. There was a question from Colin about what the scheduled date is, or the scheduled interview date. I made it like, you know, just to be clear, I don't want to put a ton of tracking in this, but just put in the future date that you have arranged with the interviewee once you have it. And that lets us know that, you know, the next step has happened. I don't want to come up with a complicated CRM workflow to get this done. This is just to have an idea of what we have in motion. All right.
I'm going to put a note in there. I probably need to talk about how do we do the outreach, even like, is there an email address or something that we can use to provide that, like the credibility back to the CNCF or figure that out. So I've got that as a takeaway.
Meaning, oh, like when if you have to contact through email, do you need to use CNCF? No, I would argue no. This is, if they do not have a Slack and you need to do email, then just use your own email. That came up before when we were collecting email addresses and I wanted to sort of bulk email or something, and like nobody had an answer back then for like official email posting from a CNCF address or something like that. So again, that's why we're keeping it private and limited per case, so that if you do have to have the email address, only 2 or 3 people get it.
Sure. Totally understood. Yeah, I want to be hyper conscious of like, I don't want to have it be misconstrued that I'm using the outreach as a form of like sales.
Well, and that's maybe it's a little bit of a problem for at least you and Abby. I don't know that Robert is a vendor, but yeah, it is somewhat of an issue, right? If we have vendors doing outreach for this, but maybe you just need to preface your contact with them. We have a lot of people, so there's not as many people with email addresses only, right? There's plenty of people we can reach out to on Slack. The only problem is they may not be on Slack very much, so we might need to fall back to email.
I mean, we're operating in good faith here, but we could always get people to sign pledges, but they won't be using it to push their own products through it. But
well, there is that. I can't stop to share. Colin, can you oh, it just says it's lit. Was anyone actually seeing the
Yeah,
like,
it was there.
Colin, can you kill my share or try sharing again and get rid of, it's not letting me.
David, is there a need for any kind of geographical split? Because I'm conscious a lot of the accents are all America. Is there a need for kind of more interviewees in Europe, or is the bulk of
I
this
think we
America?
have I think we have well, I only have 3 people signed up for Europe so far.
Right.
You mean interviewees or interviewers?
Interviewers.
So I think we have a fair number of interviewers in Europe, at least what I know
Okay.
from the group. Maybe need a few more in the US, and I need to know if there's anyone who can cover India. There's we have at least 1 sign up from India so far, and probably others.
Right.
And if
Might be able to help
you
with
know,
that.
EU could handle like US morning, like that's why I'm going for not just time zone, but like the contact is when are you available? And if it's more EU mornings,
Yeah.
right? That's different from EU afternoons.
If you need India, I might be able to get someone in our team to help with that.
Okay.
Actually, an Indian speaking as well. So
Okay.
I mean, at the end, it would be awesome if the interview is in English, or else the transcription of it will be a bit harder.
transcript could be in English, yeah, but they might prefer to talk natively.
I mean, we'd prefer the interviews in English since we're going to be watching the videos, and I don't
Right,
know
okay.
what kind of translation we'd be able to get reliably.
On the back end of all this is going to be the anonymized transcripts that we're going to be running synthesis on.
Yeah,
And
so if you know, we have one person from India and we have one Indian transcript, that is also not helping with the anonymization of it. But yeah.
Yeah, the only thing, you know, as David said, the big bulk of the work now is the scheduling and the logistics around that and creating some momentum. There is a kind of a research guide with best practices in the project repo. And it's going to get another update after this call with David's scheduling diagram. And after Corbin's question around whether it's going to be recorded, I'll add that as very explicit requirements at the top so everybody knows what the expectation is. Otherwise, here, let me just quickly share it. Desktop 2. And, you know, part of it is as we go through the interview, there are going to be some questions around practice and logistics that come up. The idea is to, you know, reflect everything back in this document so others can follow if we align on, you know, on those changes. This is just kind of a rough guide of, if, you know, as a refresher, if you haven't done interviews in a while, or if you're doing them for the first time, what is the flow like, right, before, during, and after the interview, some kind of obvious or just common best practices around leading questions and how to deal with pauses and how to nudge people effectively. Because, you know, if it's not something you've done often, there's just a natural human instincts take over of trying to fill silence and trying to, you know, restate the questions with the answer kind of embedded in it already. So we want to level set on that. And it may be, I mean, it may be of interest and maybe of value to us to maybe run a workshop for interviewers who are interested. So just run through it and do a Q&A.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, Michael, is like doing a test interview or a workshop would be good. Like have somebody just simulating being the interviewee and letting people see how to do the interview.
In general, you can also just, you know, whenever give us direct feedback to the guide, for example. And I don't know if we said it, but there's also a clear interview script that you should follow. So it's not like you have to come up with questions and all. We want to have the outcome of those interviews as comparable as possible. So all of the questions, you know, grouped in different areas are already in a script, and you just have to follow the script. And then you get some additional information on how to best get through the script and all that with the interview guide. Both can be found in the repository that's linked in the document now, and I also shared it in the chat here. So if you're not sure if you want to be an interviewer, you can just go through the script, see if it, you know, speaks to you, and read through the guide. It's not that hard. If you want to be an interviewee, then please don't look at the script because you shouldn't be biased, right?
Yeah. So the first script that we have is the platform builder, you know, platform engineer script. The idea, where possible, and it's in the guide, is to ask for referrals at the end of the interviews. What you'll find, and we had a few test runs ready, is that when you're, you know, talking to certain folks, they can answer a lot of operational questions or how the team approaches work, but they might not have visibility into objectives and the KPIs, for the team as it relates to the business and everything that happens outside of the kind of day-to-day platform roadmap. And so ideally, if it's possible, get a referral to somebody in a management position, any kind of leadership position that could answer those questions. It's not always going to be possible, but it's worth asking. And then the other person that would be worth getting a referral for, and once again, it's in the guide, is a consumer of the platform. In the absolute kind of best case is we have for one company, a builder, a leader, and a consumer. In between the three, we kind of triangulate the reality of what's actually happening in the business around the platform. There any questions around that part?
So if somebody wants to be, just reiterating, if somebody wants to be an interviewer, the steps are is the first step to fill out the form, and then you'll get access to the private channel for the research group.
Yeah, the best way to do it is fill out the form. We'll pull you into the group, familiarize yourself with the script and the guide. If you have any open questions, the private group is the best place for that, so everybody else can see them. And then it's about picking something off the tracker based on your availability and interest.
Or ability to do the scheduling piece.
Yes.
And you're not committing to doing interviewing if you take one of the items off the tracker. Because if you contact someone and we don't, and their timing doesn't work, or like I said, right now we need a lot of people to do contact, and then we'll need more people to do the actual interviewing.
I have potentially another dumb question. So sorry guys, I'm trying to get caught up on this one. But are you I guess maybe it's two things. So one is the people that you're interviewing, it's going to be anonymized. So like we can let them know ahead of time, like, hey, if you contribute to this, like we're just going to anonymize the results. So you don't have to get like legal or something from your company. And then my second question is, have you thought about, like we've been talking about maturity and like, size of organization and like a variety of things that could influence the answers to these questions. Have you thought about like a distribution of companies, based on any sort of criteria, like the number of developers they have or the size of the organization or any of those things?
Yeah, there's information in the sign up form for interviewees that we're taking on organization size and some other elements.
Cool.
Yeah, and to your, I guess the first question is, yeah, a lot of the guide and in the interview kind of reinforces getting them comfortable, in your outreach, upfront in the interview at the end, around anonymity and how long the transcript will live beyond the interview, who's going to see it, and what's going to happen to it. It's important that people are comfortable with it. Some people won't be, right? Some people will feel compelled to ask for permission, and that's going to stall the process. I guess we'll see how it goes when everybody's kind of reaching out in every direction, what percentage of folks that affects.
Oh, does anyone have any more questions on the interview process?
Just to clarify, Corbin, were you asking about whether or not we were collecting that info or targeting who we were targeting?
I was thinking about it more in terms of who you're targeting, but I guess like in some way, like I was thinking, are you going to have like a distribution of people like coming from like different sizes or maybe
I don't know. Like the only way we can control that is by everybody, taking that blog post and the LinkedIn post and, going to their networks and trying to get us more people signed up, right? That's our blocker right now, is having people actually signed up.
Corbin, do you mean statistical distribution?
No, I'm thinking, well, sort of, but I was also thinking about just like the people that I would reach out to tend to be, they're going to tend to be like bigger companies with, that have been doing this stuff for like a while. So I was just
That's
curious.
great. Like we have no idea who we're gonna get, and it's gonna take time and effort to schedule and actually run the interviews. So anyone you can get in for us, great. We're not, so the targeting, I think, is secondary to actually getting people to interview.
Yeah,
Where's the
on
LinkedIn post, David? Is it already published?
What is what?
the
The
blog post.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, there's a LinkedIn post on the Tag App Delivery LinkedIn. Robert's
I'm gonna have a look.
posted it like a week or two ago.
Yeah, I'll just say this, Corbin. It's a question we asked ourselves about targeting, and I think where we landed on with this was we're going exploratory, right? We're going generative in terms of understanding what's happening in companies, depending on, once we start getting folks back based on the interviewer intake and the information that interviewers submit, if they go to their own network, we'll start being able to create a picture of where folks are coming from. And if there are gaps we want to fill more proactively by targeting those groups, companies of a specific size or industry.
Add a link to it here as well. So here's the LinkedIn post.
Yeah, I've got it. Thanks. Just posting now.
This goes to the
Like,
blog.
share, and subscribe.
Hit that subscribe button. Awesome. Yeah, it might be good to get just another round of reshares. Go ahead and do that too. I can't spell. There you go. Boom. We've accomplished something.
Yes.
All right. Any last questions on the research? We can move on to the assessment tool.
I do have one. It's not necessarily specifically the research, but if you could go back to, or if Robert and Abby, and so we didn't submit anything through the regular co-located events talks, but it feels like we should get some sort of slot to talk about initial results or thoughts about what we're seeing and that sort of thing it would make sense in platform day.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm sure they'll do a working group update. I don't know if a short working group update is going to be enough time though. Maybe we can get an exemption and just do a submission, even though it's a little later. I'll add that note in Slack really quick privately.
Okay.
All right, let's while I'm doing that, let's move on to the maturity model risk assessment tool portion. Corbin, do you want me to give you screen share?
Sure, yeah.
Mind here?
Yeah, I can just kind of update the team on what we worked on last meeting, which I think was last Tuesday.
Go for it.
I don't see the button pop up. Let's see.
Do I have ability?
Yeah, here it is. It came up now. Let's see. All right, can you guys see the target audiences and outcomes doc?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So our last meeting, we had an off-scheduled meeting to kind of dive into this particular document. And we, I think, got pretty close to wrapping up like feedback. You can see that almost all the comments have been resolved. There's a couple new ones here, but it's still in review status. So it would be good, to kind of gather up any last minute comments. But for the most part, I feel like we did a pretty good job of trying to wrap this one up. There's basically two main, I guess, outcomes of this document. One was to define the audience of the assessment tool. And so we defined that as the platform engineering team, some sponsors, and potentially some other stakeholders. And then we defined the outcomes of the tool. And there's basically these kind of three sort of areas, defining the current state of platform engineering efforts, identify improvement opportunities, and understand likely sources of friction or pain. And it kind of boiled down into these three things, that what it might look like, right? It's still pretty early, and we'll figure out as we go how it evolves and what it looks like. But for the most part, I think we've wrapped up this part of it. There's another document that that we kind of put on the back burner to kind of focus on this one, because I think this kind of gives us a good sort of foundation on which we were talking about sort of the format. There was like 4 key areas that we were looking for in terms of feedback. I don't have the link to that one handy, but I think we want to now shift the focus back to that, which was does yes, no questions make sense? We had like pretty good amount of feedback around the whole concept of risk. So probably want to revisit that topic and figure out what do we want to use instead of the term risk. Because I think the community is pretty strong in terms of feedback that we don't want to use that term. And yeah, I think there's like 2 other attributes I can't remember off the top of my head. But that's kind of where we are at the moment. Anybody have any questions on this? Have folks like had a chance to see this also? I'll just put this in the chat as well. So I think we're, I don't know, maybe a week off our schedule at the moment, which was to kind of finalize the format. So I think hopefully in the next couple weeks, we'll kind of settle down on making sure that we're comfortable with that approach, and then start working on the next phase, which will kind of focus more on like the content itself, right? So what are the questions that we ask? How many questions do we have? How do we gather those questions, or use questions that we already have? So we'll kind of be going through that next phase once we get through finalizing that first doc.
We need to schedule another like deep dive along the way, or do we have anything scheduled?
Yeah, we don't have one scheduled. I'm gonna be out next week, so I probably won't be able to do it in the off week this week. So, and Abby's not here at the moment, and she's helping kind of spearhead this one as well. So I think I'll try to reach her maybe over the next couple days or in the next week and kind of figure out some next steps, and we can kind of report out on where we are. But I think the intention is to get this particular document that I just shared approved, so that we can continue with the next set of assets that we need.
There is we kind of have a bonus week in between this week and the next platform meeting. So the week of it would be like Tuesday the 6th, is not the next platform working group date, but that might be a good date to do a deep dive or a final review or something.
Okay,
Just for
got it.
heads up, but I'll let you coordinate with Abby.
All right, thanks, Colin. Anybody else with questions, comments, concerns? Okay. That's it for me.
Awesome. Does anybody have, we don't really have anything. And again, reminder, as the weeks go along, if you want to try to add a topic for discussion, go ahead and throw it into the platform working group notes so that we can get out ahead. But does anybody have any, I think we got a little extra bonus time left that they want to discuss, chat, bring up questions, comments. We didn't really do a whole lot of just general platform discussion today. It was mostly logistics. So curious if anybody wants the floor to talk about something.
I wasn't prepared for this, but there was a post that came out. Let me see if I can find it real quick, on a topic that I thought was super interesting, and I was curious on other folks' sort of like thoughts or input. It was this one from Daniel Bryant about progressive disclosure. I don't know if you guys saw that, but it's definitely something that has come up a couple times with some of the customers that I work with, or some organizations that I work with, around how to balance the sort of paved path for scaffolding services out, from like a developer portal, sort of balancing like the small list of like inputs that somebody could put in that would give them like a bunch of predefined standards, to something that's like very complex and requires like a huge YAML of like configuration and things. It was pretty interesting. Did you guys see that post? Let me
Yeah, post a link.
Full disclosure, we're working with Syntasso at the moment, and maybe some of that is coming from us as well, because it reads very much like our approach. So it's quite an echo chamber. But it's a good article. Daniel's done well pulling it together.
Yeah, I know, Chris, you're working with them directly, but I was curious, like, what about other folks who are maybe working with them directly? I was curious, like, if you've thought about this, or is this an issue that you see commonly? Just curious.
UX in general is a huge gap for platform teams, because they come from a systems background and they build something they understand and they document it, and then they yell at users for not looking at the manual when it's not obvious to them. And they've documented it, so why haven't you looked at the docs? So I'm going through with another team now and telling them, and it's great when you're onboarding people in the platform team, because they can go through the experience as a new user, document it, and then one of the things I'm going to force them to do is say, if you tell them to look at the manual, you've failed, right? And so your UX, this progressive thing, there's also something called affordance-based design. So when you go up to a door that has a pull handle on it, that's giving the user the affordance that, oh, all you need to do is reach out and pull on that and the door will come towards you. as opposed to those horrible doors that just have the same exact horizontal bar on both sides, but only go in one direction. Right. So that's the opposite of affordance-based design. So yeah, there are a lot of great design principles, but I think kind of like we're talking about product thinking in terms of platforms, there also just needs to be UX thinking, right? Just the basics before you even get into progressively more complex interfaces. You just need to care about what the user experience is. And that's a little different from product thinking. It's very tied up in it. But product thinking is about coming up with solutions that solve pain points. Good UX is about making it possible for people, to get to those solutions in as easy a manner as possible. And I just think platform teams don't think about that, especially when they're building stuff from scratch.
We've chatted about it in the coffee chats, David, and I think the larger the organization and the more complex, the more divisions you've got. You also end up having kind of the division of who actually looks after the developer portal and the developer experience and who's trying to service them. You end up having maybe competing, not necessarily well aligned, different teams trying to do good things for good intent. So you might have platform teams actually doing the platform stuff that they understand, and you might have kind of developer advocates doing backstage and stuff that are all about improving the benefits of those developers. Then you've got this kind of bit in the middle where they're not really gelling perfectly, and so you can end up having different divisions trying to do the same thing, right, in different places. You could have your front end developer personas trying to do something, and you could have your platform teams trying to do something as well. All for very valid reasons, all via value streams and everything else. But in larger orgs, these things bubble up. I'm seeing it personally, so I know this. And how do you deal with that? Because the developer folks are all focused on backstage, which is the UI, one channel, but you've still got API and CLI and other channels that other teams want to use. It's quite difficult, right? And some teams will focus on the UI, the developer guys especially, when they're calling it the developer portal. And then you've got other teams who actually aren't really caring about the UI aspect. They're caring more about the API and how they do maybe X as a service, right? Team topology type interaction method, and maybe
Or the
publishing
CLI,
their
right?
products.
How is the CLI experience for a given service? So you have API, CLI, UI, and do you have any consistency, between any of those methods? I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
nice the way cloud vendors often have like tabs for different languages and different methods for accomplishing the same task. Like Google is really great at that. It's like, here's how you do it in the console, here's how you do it from the CLI. And but again, I feel like, the extension of product thinking is that, most products will have designers involved and UX people. And we're getting pre-bundled UX through either Backstage or all these other products. But a lot of teams are also rolling their own stuff. And, it's valid, but then they're not thinking about UX and they're not getting a shortcut to UX by using a product. So what do you do then? And even if you're using Backstage, like Backstage still has plenty of UI work for you to do, right? If you want to extend it beyond even the basic stuff.
Yeah.
Niccolo, I think you had a question.
No, rather than a question. I lowered the hand because actually I think that should
You're breaking up pretty badly.
the points and increase as well, but I
Can't
think
hear.
they
Yeah, I can't understand.
raised a great point here because he's breaking up badly.
Yeah, I think you couldn't even hear us. Like you were going half duplex on us.
Okay.
And then Antoine. Oh, did we lose him? Nope, there you are.
You're on
Antonio
mute, though.
did, I think.
Still on mute.
All right, sorry, I have two mute buttons, the physical one. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I was going to react about the UX skills that you will need, because I do believe that most of those platform projects are going to be an initiative from the technical teams. So on my side, that's the case. It's from the infrastructure teams, the platform team. So we currently, when we are going to start in our new some kind of platform rework, we don't have such skills ourselves, and we don't have people within our teams to get some UX. So we have no knowledge on how to do it. So that's our current maturity issue. We don't have any skills on how to do correct interviews to developer. I did it for the first time a few months ago, how to talk to your developers. It was difficult. So I see it's going to be a struggle for many companies on how to get into platform product thinking, because they have, for many technical teams, never done it. So I think in the risk assessment or the maturity assessment tools, that's going to be a big point. I think some kind of warning, or maybe a warning, but most what we need is a guide on what you need to look at, what kind of article you need to read.
I mean that sorry, should have put my hand up just to follow up on that. That's partly why Daniel's written this article, right? Whether it's Syntactocratics, whether it's Humanitech, a lot of these orchestrators that are out there, they're actually trying to tackle that UI element. They're trying to take the API that you're exposing and actually do some of that front end UI stuff for you, so you don't need to have those skills yourself. I know that that's certainly one of the reasons that we're down the route of Syntacto. I believe Humanitech does that as well. I think Port does too. I don't know, Corbin, if you can talk, or someone else can talk about Canoe, but I'm thinking Canoe's trying to do the same thing as well, right?
Canoe is just amalgamation of the current. It's an opinionated stack, so they're not really tackling UI yet. They're tackling the problem of spinning up an opinionated developer platform.
Yeah.
Sorry, physical hand. Chris, to your point, you bring it back a lot to organizational challenges, alignment between teams. One thing with vendors, once they come in and they're thinking more about the product, they're thinking more about the experience, it's built into it, it's deployed. To what extent have you seen that change the culture? And your own team pick up those principles and approaches to work and carry it on, because it's one thing to deploy initially and get things going, but you have to inherit it, you have to maintain it. It's part of your business now, unless
listen, I mean, it's really powerful. I think when you have something working and you can demonstrate it, forget all the theory, right? Once you actually have something working, just a bare bones MVP, and you can demonstrate that, it absolutely changes the opinions, and it changes kind of the mannerisms, because people can then see, oh, wait a minute, right, so you've already done that, and we can reconsume it, and we can contribute to that, right? So we don't have to do that in our own tech, right? Suddenly, I mean, I saw it in the last week, right, working with another division, when they could actually see our demo and start touching some of our stuff. They began to get the concept and start thinking about, well, we thought we were going to write that, but you've already done it, or you're already doing this part. So how do we just consume it? Without having those tangibles and being able to do that, it's really difficult, right? People treat it like vaporware. But the moment you have something and you can really demo it, the moment people start to kind of coalesce around it, takes a little bit of time. You've still got to break through some of those barriers. But once you've kind of got an open demo and a clear the air session, then you can start realigning them and saying, right, so how do we work together? Right? How do you contribute?
Yeah, and what
I really I mean, I can't remember if Daniel's put it in here, but he has put it in another article. about the contribution model. I think the contribution model is really important.
And I want to thank the KubeCon conference about UX because I learned so much, and I did my demo, my MVP demo 3 months ago for our basic stack. And the first things I learned, I don't remember what was the name of the woman who did the conference, but it was excellent. She shared some tips about UX, and the things I did, okay, I'm going to demonstrate my platform. Okay, here is a platform link, now use it. So we had a user or MVP user. It discovered the platform live. So I was just watching what she said about UX is just watch how they use your platform. They will tell you anything what's wrong, what they have issues. So I recorded, I think, 20 minutes on the user trying to just deploy, build a container. And it took me 3 days to review the 20 minutes of video. So this is something I'm not used to. It's quite something different. I'm not going to tell you how to use it, so I have to write the documentation, but I'm going to view how you use it itself.
Yeah, David, you had your hand.
Yeah, I was just going to also go back to Chris's comment and, you know, the vaporware aspect. There's also the gap between sometimes what you sell as the platform and what your users actually end up with. And so if you don't even have something to demo, when you actually get the thing in front of them to use, sometimes it's fairly late in the stage and you're in a rush for them to do some sort of migration, and you get this sort of like late breaking UX. Oh, that's what we have to do. And again, if you don't simplify it enough, people might be trying to learn. The cognitive load of learning your platform exceeds the value of the future cognitive load reduction potentially. So, you know, you're trying to make things better for them, but if in the short span of time they might have to actually migrate, it's harder, then they might not see, you might not get them to adopt, and they might not see that future value.
Yeah, one of the I've talked about it a little bit before as well. I think we have a lot to learn from a lot of the concepts that are pioneered in web application development. We've for a long time the slogan and web app development, I guess around like the 2012 to 2018, kind of in that era, was all about use the platform, use the platform, use the platform. But that was the slogan, literally, from Google, especially in the web application development side. And there was a concept of progressive enhancement, because each different platform, like web browser, was trying to introduce new capabilities and new features like Bluetooth support and all these different things. And so there was a focus on how do you introduce new features to users, and how do you give developers the tools to introduce new features to users at the right time. And without getting too much into it, there's technical aspects of it as well that it was intended to enable. I'd encourage folks to maybe go read a little bit about that, and I'll include a link to a good resource as well. But I think that concept is really important. It has been pioneered, and it touches on a lot of the same things that this post is saying as well. It's just in a different domain. It's not in infrastructure, it's in browsers. And there's 1,000 different varieties of browsers that have 1,000 different updates and versions that different people are running on different machines at different ages, which for me has always been analogous to the different tools that developers are using and all of their preferences and who we have to design for and think for and stuff like that. But just an interesting one if anyone wants to dig a little bit.
Fun fact, one of the original PWAs was an HTML only view of Twitter that essentially one of the progressive steps was, do we have JavaScript or not?
Yep.
And, you know, back when people would, and there are still people who turn off JavaScript, but it's more or less impossible to write a modern web app without JavaScript. So
yeah, I put that into the thing there. So cool. We are at time. Just want to encourage people to just to make sure if you have an idea or a topic, to make sure it gets heard and gets discussed, please go into the notes document and add that to the discussions in the working Google Doc. That'll help us make sure we have good content planned for the next thing. Sometimes the discussions get lost in Slack, and Slack is great as well, especially if you're able to work asynchronously and have some stuff there. But please highlight it in the meeting so that we can discuss and at least bring attention to it, because not everyone can stay in Slack. Otherwise, does anybody have any last questions, comments, concerns? All right. Well, I hope everybody has a good good Tuesday. I'm going to go back in and check to make sure that the Google page or the community page time on the calendar entry is working correctly. It is correct on the page, but for some reason the calendar entry is downloading as a different time zone. So I'm going to go check on that. It's only affecting the 4th Tuesday right now. I verified that the other is correct. But I hope everyone has a good Tuesday, and we'll see you next time or in the deep dives and see you in Slack. Thank you guys very much.
Bye.
Goodbye.
I'm going to hang out for a couple minutes in case anybody joins because they have the wrong time zone.
Say hi, Colin.
See you, Simon.